Hey, it's Rob, and welcome to Axel's Garage. We are out here tinkering with Barry White. Now, what I mean by tinkering is we've had little issues here or there. We started to make some videos with Barry, but we got a nice day and I could crawl around underneath Barry and get some needed work done that we really needed to do. And we're talking about the lift kit that came in Barry. So, looking under it, it looks like a 3-inch lift kit, and when you take a look in the back, there are aluminum blocks that are sitting on the coil spring pads, and the coil springs are sitting on top of them. They're 3 inches. There's also Bilstein shocks front and rear. So the guy that had it, or the two owners ago, whoever did the lift kit in this, at least went for the Bilstein shocks. He put what appear to be good quality aluminum blocks in the back, and got that back is up 3 inches because of those 3-inch blocks. Now, the front, they put keys in, and they put some kind of offset keys in. I don't know whether they were Amazon or eBay special. The documentation that I got with them didn't give me a brand, didn't give me a model number, just gave directions on how to put them in. So we really don't know what's going on with the keys in the front. But here's the lift kit disaster that I'm talking about. There's, two reasons why you would do a lift kit. You want it to look a certain way, you want it to fit a certain set of wheels and tires. But the bottom line is, it's got to mechanically perform. So in the back, putting those blocks in and having your stock springs should give you at least stock ride in the rear. And if you use a good quality shock like that was done here at the right length, everything in the back should be fine. And it is. However, it looks funny. And it looks funny because the front seems to be, it looks too high. And depending on what angle you're looking at it, you could see it more or less. And I'll take the camera off the tripod in a minute and we'll talk about that. But what happens in the front? They put the offset keys in that give you more lift in the front. But when you lift the front, there's 2 control arms and you're cranking on that. So what you're doing is you're actually driving the 2 control arms down. So that changes your ball joint angles. Now, I've had a ton of these GMT-800 trucks, and some of them up to 250,000 miles with still the original ball joints. So if you change that, it will make that ball joint angle a little more extreme. Will you prematurely wear out your ball joints? Yes, you will. But they last so damn long that, if the lift kit is causing me to wear out a ball joint in 125,000 miles, I can live with that. What I can't live with is what is going on with this truck. And there's 2 things. As those control arms go down, there is actually a stop built into the suspension system so that when you're driving normally and you go on a dip in the road, your suspension doesn't go too far down. It's a stop that hits the upper control arm. And the reason why they don't want you to go too far down is because it makes your half shaft or drive axle, whatever you want to call them, the half shafts, the CV joints on either end coming from the transfer case going to the wheel, and that shaft, we normally call it a half shaft, but it makes those CV angles very, very severe. So on a quick dip, no big deal, but you don't want to drive around with severe CV angles. Now in this truck, and I will show you, we have severe CV angles because those keys are turned so far up to get the front of this up that the stop that I'm talking about on that upper control arm, as they move up and down, it's right on that stop. So I have no down travel in the suspension whatsoever. My CV angles are so severe that when I first got this truck, within the first 5 miles, I actually dumped the CV axle on the passenger side out. And I'll show you the carnage underneath. It's still in on the hub end, it's still in on the transfer case end, but both CV joints completely disintegrated, and it chunked the half shaft between the CV joints right out the bottom of the truck, and I wound up running it over. Now, we got to put a CV axle in, of course, but I wasn't going to put a new one in with these extreme angles and just break the new one, because we're going to have to put one in on the driver's side as well, because the reliability of that one is questionable because of these extreme angles. So those are the 2 major things. Other thing is, how does it look? How does it ride? Okay, it looks like it's a little up in the front to me. We're going to measure. How does it ride? Well, it doesn't ride great because we're already on the droop stops. I'm going to call them droop stops. I don't know what they call it, but we'll call them droop stops. So I'm going to take a tape measure out, and we're going to take some measurements and see what we have. So on level ground from the side, with me holding this camera as level as I possibly can, I see it up in the front. It looks up in the front. Now, although it could measure level, it looks like it's up in the front just because of the way the wheel wells go. That rear wheel well seems to be a little bit lower in the overall body than the front wheel well. So that's going to make it look higher in the front, even if it might be level. Now, these trucks from the factory came with a little bit of a rake, and they had that rake to sort of make the truck look level because of the body line, the difference in those wheel wells, to make it look level. Because I think it's the wheel wells that are making it not look level. Either way, we got to bring this front end down because it just ain't working for us. So now there are different ways to measure. A lot of people measure off the ground, which is fine if you have equally inflated and the same size tires and wheels front and rear, which we do. But like I said, if you measure from the ground through the center of the hub to the bottom of the lip, if this lip isn't at the same height as the other lip and within the body, your measurements are going to be different. So this one here, we're at 40¼ inches to the bottom of the wheel well lip. If I come to the back, I'm at 39¼ So what I believe that means is aesthetically, it's an inch higher in the front than it is in the back. But if you measure from the bottom of the running board, a side step here, I've got about 15 inches to the floor, and then I go back here, and I have that same 15 inches. So the chassis of the truck, I believe, is level, but it doesn't look level because of the way the wheel wells are cut higher in the front than they are in the back. Now, to determine how much lift you added or took away, you could always measure like this because that'll tell you as well, but the actual lift of the vehicle is going to go from something that never changes, which is the center of the hub. So if we go center of the hub to the wheel well, here we're at 25⁻⁻⁻⁻. And if I go here, I'm at 24⁻⁻⁸. So again, I have that inch. And I think that's what we need to do is bring it down that inch. And I think if we bring that inch down, we're going to solve a little bit of our drive angle problems, we're going to solve our bump stock problems, and we're going to solve our how it looks problems. And you got to get all that straightened out before you go invest money on wheels and tires, because what happens here is every time you crank this up, those control arms are on a pivot. So the more they come down to bring the truck up, the more it brings the wheel in. Changes the alignment, it changes the in and out, caster, camber, I always forget what they are, camber I think it is. It will change that, you will need to get it aligned. If you do it just a little bit, you could get away without aligning it, but I don't know when this truck was aligned, before or after the lift, I have no idea. The tires seem to be wearing evenly, but who knows how many miles have been on it. We don't know, there's a lot we don't know about this truck. You know, pretty much came with a stack of paperwork. Guy bought a lot of parts, but I don't really know the history of what he did and when he did it. But when you look at the truck, because the front is so turned up on those keys and those control arms are down, it brings the wheels in just a little bit, and it makes the front wheels tucked under a lot more than the rear wheels. Even though from the factory, when it's sitting at factory ride height, the front and the rear, the front and the rear, oh my God, I can't talk today. The front and the rear wheels have about the same tuck, front and rear. And once you start dropping them down, it brings them in because it's on the same pivot point. And that pivot point doesn't grow to keep the wheels in the same spot. So as you pivot them down, even if you drew it out on a piece of paper, you can figure that out. As you pivot them down, they're actually coming in a little bit. if the control arms were straight out like this, that would be the most distance and bring the wheels out the most. And as you bring them down, they're going to come in, and as you bring them up, they're going to come in. When they're parallel to the ground is when they're going to be the most stuck out. And parallel to the ground is where the factory ride is. So just keep that in the back of your head when you're trying to figure out wheels and tires as well. Now looking under Barry White here, you could see the CV axle or half shaft, that angle that it's on, right? It's pulling at the boot there. You can see where the axle shaft itself goes into the boot. It's pulling at the boot. You can see over there, I don't think these boots are ripped yet like the other side was. You can see your extreme tie rod angle as well. All right, and then I guess I'll have to turn the wheel to show you the bump stop. But on the other side, you can see the CV axle is missing. It completely ripped out at the CV joint on both sides. And it just will not put up with those angles. So now with the wheel turned out, you can see right here is where the control arm hits this point here. And they say this is, I'm calling it the droop stop. I don't know what it's actually called, but I'm right on it. The control arm is sitting on it. And they say you should at least have a pencil width, which is like a little less than 1/4 of an inch. Should have at least have that much when the truck is at its normal rest or ride height. And I'm right on it there. So I'm hoping that an inch drop will solve a lot of these problems. All right, so now what do we do to achieve this? Well, what I have done previously over the last couple of weeks is I kept spraying down the bolts to tighten or loosen the torsion keys with some penetrating oil, just because I didn't know how rusted they were in place. Figured that it can't hurt at least, to make them easier to turn. Now when you're putting torsion keys in and lifting the vehicle, you have to lift the front of the vehicle and get that suspension off the ground. Otherwise, every turn of the bolt, you're actually trying to lift the vehicle. And that's putting too much strain on the bolt because it's not made for that. It's made to be a stop, not a lifting point. But when you're lowering it, the weight of the vehicle is actually helping you loosen that bolt because you're actually loosening them as you lower them. They're not going to get loose where they're going to fall out. You're just turning that adjustment down, but gravity is on your side, so you don't need to lift the vehicle. However, if you go too much and you got to go up a little bit, then you need to jack the front up, let the suspension hang, so you're not fighting the weight, the whole front weight of the truck. And I'm going to bring the camera underneath, and hopefully they're 18 millimeter headed bolts. I got an 18 millimeter on a short breaker, and I got an 18 millimeter on a long breaker, and we're going to go and see how easy these are to loosen. And I'm going to go probably a full turn to start and then see what that does. And each time you make that adjustment, you want to do the same on both sides so that you're dropping it the same amount, and then you want to give it a little ride before you measure it and to let the suspension kind of move and really see where you're at. And then if you're side to side off a little bit, you'll have to make some fine-tuning adjustments there. So I'm going to go a full turn on this first one, see what it does, and then we'll see afterwards what difference it makes. So just using by measurement, which is my more exact measurement, was 40 1/4 from the ground to the top lip here, to the bottom of the flare, 40 1/4. So let's go. We want to get that down to 39 1/4, and let's see what happens. So taking you under, here's our torsion bar that goes into the lower control arm in the front. Here's our torsion key, and here's our adjuster right here. And you can see just above the adjuster, there's thread. So as long as this bolt is pushing up on the key the slightest, it's not going to back out or loosen up or change. You just don't want the key resting on the pin and the pin taking all the weight. The pin takes all the weight anyway, but you just want to be able to adjust this up just enough to push the key off of this pin, and that's your lowest point. So right now we're we're cranked up a little bit and we have some room to play. Now, I don't know how many turns, and that's all depends on each vehicle. It might be a little bit different on that. How many turns results in how much change. Like is a full turn a half inch? Is it a quarter of an inch? You know, every vehicle is different because it depends on the condition of the torsion bar. You know, how old and stretched out is it? The keyway, the keys, right? These are aftermarket keys, so they have an offset thing, so you really don't know exactly until you start doing it, so you want to go a little bit at a time. I think I'll be okay with a full turn on each one to start with, and we'll see what that gives us. So hopefully the camera stays propped up where I got it. All right, I want to loosen, so I want to go that way. And my handle of my wrench is right on the torsion bar, so loosening, and that is one full turn. All right, that's one full turn. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. We'll move the truck, and then we'll see what that gave us. Down, take a measurement, and I dropped maybe 1/8 of an inch, it looks like. So I went from 40 1/4 to 48 1/8. And that was on a full turn, 1/8 of an inch. And I am still on the droop stops, I'm going to call them. So I'm going to go 2 turns now on either side. I went 3 turns on that one. Thing is, when you turn it down on this side, you don't hear anything, like any suspension creaking. But when you do the second side is when you hear a little bit of creak in the suspension. Now I know I still got to drive it around the block, but I could see a a C hair of space now between the droop stop and the control arm. Right, so we did 4 total turns. 1 on the first round and 3 on the second round, and now we're at 39 5/8. So 39 5/8. So we went from 5/8, 6, 8, 7, 8, 8, 8. 5/8, 6, 8, 7, 8, 8, 8, 9, 8. So we went 4/8, which is half an inch. We dropped half an inch with those 3 turns. So I am going to go, we want to go 39 1/4 is our goal. So I'm going to take 2 turns, and let's see what we got on 2 turns. I'd love to go 3, but I think that might be too much. So I'm going to go 2 turns and see. So that's 2 turns, which gives me a total of 6 turns. 1 on the first one, then 3, then 2. So we're 6 turns in. Definitely improved by the droop stop. And I'm under 39.5, just like a 16th under 39.5. So let me go drive it around the corner. It's a process. Now remember, our goal to be aesthetically pleasing was 39.25. We think that will be aesthetically pleasing. However, mechanically, we got to get off those droop stops and we got to make our angles better. So, big difference after that ride. I am at 39. Wow, that ride made a big difference. So moving it definitely has got to be done each and every time, because now I'm at 39. Did I just say 39? Which hopefully is not too low. 39 and an 8. Nope, 39. Right through the middle of the hub, 39. So now, when you look at the bump stop, oh, beautiful. I'll show you that in a minute. Check this side. 38 7/8 on the passenger side. I got to come down a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to do a 1/4 turn on this side. Bump stops are great, or the droop stop. I'm going to go a 1/4 turn on this side. That's a 1/4 turn. Let me go drive it and see. and 13/16. 38 and 13/16. 38 and 13. I think I'm good. Yep. So we're at 38 and 13/16. One line more than 3/4. Exactly on both sides. Okay, that is good. Now, is it aesthetically pleasing is the question. But I think this is looking much more level than it did. Matter of fact, from this angle, it looks like there's a little rake. But again, I think that it's just optical illusions because of the differences in the wheel well heights. And you could see here, our CV and tie rod angle is much, much better. Wow, phenomenal amount better. I'm much happier with this. And now, look at that gap we have between this bump stop, droop stop thing and the control arm. Now we have some down travel. Excellent. So I'm gonna call this a success for right now. I'm liking the way it looks. I'm gonna drive around for a couple days and see. I have plenty of room to go down. I think I have a little room to even go up if I need to go up, but I think where it sits now looks good. I'm gonna have to, like, as I approach it and walk away from it and back and forth, see how it looks. I know I got plenty of room in the bump stop. I could even go up just a little, and I have plenty of room in that droop stop. My angles are better. I think this is probably where I'm gonna want it to sit because of the angles. I like the angles. If I see that I want to bring it down a little bit more, that'll just make my angles better. If I bring it up, that makes my angles a little worse. But right now, the angles look good. They can be better. But I think this is where it's at. And if we leave it here, we're not so cranked up on those keys. Everything's not so harsh and binding. Now we can realistically start measuring for tires. Now, is my alignment off? Yeah, I'm probably my wheels are going to be out a little bit from putting it down. But now at least I can get a better measurement on a wheel and tire combo that we like, because with this truck lifted, the factory wheels just don't have enough offset, or don't have enough backspacing, whichever you want to call it, offset, backspacing. They're not sticking out enough. They look much more tucked because the truck is up, and it kind of looks like it's running on stilts, kind of. But we're gonna leave it like this for now, drive around and see. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, these lift kits gone bad. It was the install, right? The back was good, shocks are good, front shocks are good, Bilsteins in the front too. The keyways, we don't know where they came from. You know, they were offset keyways or keys, and they were just cranked to shit. And there's still plenty of room to go down if we wanted to go down even more. They were just cranked up all the way, and that caused a harsh ride and a little bit of an odd look to it. But it was fixed with one tool and a flashlight and a video camera. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.